Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sevens Big League in 1982. I'm convinced from what I've seen on the trials so far, we're in for a pretty stimulating season, and what better way to start our telecast than with last year's premiers Parramatta against the 1980 premiers Canterbury at their joint home ground Belmore Oval. For a variety of reasons, neither side has been able to field the actual teams which won the 1980 and 81 premierships, respectively, but they've gone pretty close. Parramatta coach Jack Gibson, who's seen his team undefeated in 3 trials, has opted for young local lad Jeff Green on the wing instead of the experienced Graham Atkins. Stumpy Stevens, one of his veteran Warriors success stories from last year, has been left in reserves with Stephen Sharp making his appearance in the second row. The Bulldogs have had some luck with Steve Gearin. He's recovered in time from a hamstring strain and will take his place on the wing, plus the goal-kicking duties. It's in the forwards that their changes occur. 2 of the club's smartest players, brothers Mark and Graham Hughes, are injured, but tackling machine Stephen Folkes moves into the lock position, one he knows very well, and a surprise, one might almost say a gamble first up, import Dennis Donahue from Souths goes into the second row, but he did star in the Rabbitohs under-23 premiership win last season. So the battle lines are drawn. Here are the club statistics. For the last 30 games between these clubs, Canterbury have won 15, Parramatta have won 14, drawn 1. At Belmore in this time there have been 14 games, Canterbury have won 10, Parramatta have won 4. Let's see now both sides take the field. Parramatta side coming onto the field right now. This is it. Steve McKenzie, Jeff Green, Michael Cronin, Steve Ella, Eric Groth, Brett Kenny, Peter Sterling, Ray Price, John Muggleton, Steve Sharp, Ron Hilditch, Stephen Edge, Captain Bob O'Reilly, coach of course Jack Gibson. On come the Bulldogs, led by Dr. George, and this is the full side. Greg Bretnell, Chris Anderson, Chris Mortimer, Peter Mortimer, Steve Gearin, Gary Hughes, Steve Mortimer, Stephen Folkes, Peter Casillas, Dennis Donahue, John Coveney, George Paponis, Jeff Robinson and coach Ted Blossom. Referee Mr. John Gosha. Canterbury running from right to left. Parramatta receiving the ball. Ground conditions, Barry Ross.
Perfect conditions here at Canterbury Oval. There is a wind, a nor'easter favouring Parramatta in this half.
And plenty of streamers and coloured paper on the ground already at first match of the season. Now let's see what this Parramatta side can do. They've got their crown to defend, and traditionally, except for the magnificent period of St George back in the 50s and 60s, premiers have found it very hard to retain that crowd. Price at dummy half. Evades the first tackle. Wrestling match. Robinson surges in like a wild bull. Stephen Edge, a little trot from dummy half, midfield, and that's the 6. A settling down sequence of passes. Great crowd. Scrum right just on the halfway line. Parramatta ball. Kenny to Cronin. The run around, but Chris Mortimer's there like a leech hanging on to Cronin. Price swung to the ground. Casillas, the tackler. There's a penalty against Casillas for the action on Price. See it again. He's claiming it was accidental. Gosha agrees with him up to a point, but is still going to penalise him. He'd been off if he thought it was serious. Watch the foot. Right on the side of the neck. Lucky lad, Casillas. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Price came up underneath the foot. Peter Sterling. Tap restart. Canterbury offside in that sequence. Bob O'Reilly playing his 200th first grade game for Parramatta. Hilditch. O'Reilly directing traffic out there a bit. Edge. Stephen Sharp. About 15 metres out. In a day more appropriate to boating and surfing. The heat must be intense out there. O'Reilly. Edge switches back to the open side. Muggleton, good step. Robinson right round his legs. Ball goes free. Lost, says referee Gosha. And another scrum. we go with the scrum win to George Papanis. The ball's been scooped up and thrown out to Ella, and it's a try out of the blue to Parramatta. Loose passing at the Canterbury three-quarter line, and they paid the penalty. See it again from side on. Canterbury win the ball. Away it goes. A bad pass from Stephen Folks. The pass scooped up there nicely onto Ella, whose pace over 10 metres is as good as anyone's in Sydney. There's the scooping up of the pass. Nicely done. Mick Crone. The first of probably many for the year, so Parramatta surge away after only 3.5 minutes to a 5-point lead. Sterling to feed. That looked a second row feed. Looks a mandatory penalty differential to Canterbury. Referee John Ghosh is not blind. I should say Peter Sterling made a meal of that. Right, a good attacking position from Canterbury, about 20 metres out. Let's see what they'll do. Papanis switches it to the blind. Robinson hit hard. Loses the ball. First tackle, bad football. Lovely half volley by Kenny. Out to Cronin. Cronin gets them moving forward. Now out to Grote. Grote goes round his man with greatest of ease, but there's cover. And good cover, I think, Stephen. It was a top tackle. See it again. Eric Grote's been shoulder charged very, very hard. This is the end-on shot. What's that for a shoulder check? Now that's body contact. Top tackle, that one. Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes wrapped up immediately by Brett Kenny. Brett Knoll chiming in from fullback. Chris Anderson, Steve Mortimer. Mortimer runs out of side space. That's Peter. Guerin tries a little sprint up the line, but Ella was watching for that. Steve Mortimer. Casillas. Ray Price very involved in the defence, as you'd expect. Brett Knoll. Lovely run from Mortimer. Back inside to Steve Mortimer on the fly. He's got support, but he couldn't. I think Anderson overran him slightly. He looked to him, but didn't unload the pass, and that's the 6. Jeff Green defence there, fine. Anderson a little bit remiss there. He could have been a yard deeper. Ella's offside at the moment. He's in front of the centre line of the scrum. And the Parramatta scrum win. Price. Sharp. 10 metres outside Parramatta's quarter. Muggleton, O'Reilly, Sterling. Swinging arm there from Folks, but the referee says may have said something to him. Yes, keep him down, I think, Barry.
Yes, he did have a word to him as he run past him then.
Edge. Elects to take the tackle there. He had support on the outside. Kenny dummying to kick and then grubbering it through. A gain of about 15 metres. 5 points to 0. Parramatta lead. A try in the 3rd minute to Ella after a breakdown in play in the Canterbury three-quarter line. Close to their line. That's a penalty against Steve Mortimer for an incorrect feed. Mackenzie's kick left-footed for touch is adequate. Takes them into the quarter. Well, Barry's out on the sideline in the heat. How would it feel to be playing in this?
Well, it's fair to say it's the same for both sides, Rex, but it's very, very hot. Everyone on the sideline sweating, let alone the players playing the game at the pace they are.
There's a try gone begging with Brentnell scooping up the dregs. Oh, Anderson took that on his fingertips. Can't get a pass back inside. He had Peter Mortimer there. I feel sorry for a man Bob O'Reilly's size, Ron Hildich's size, Robinson. They feel the heat in these conditions. Beautiful pass away there to Casillas, backing up nicely. And the Parramatta are a little bit slow to recover.
And that pass, Rex, was from young Donahue playing his first grade game today. Only 21 years of age, but he's doing quite well.
Steve Mortimer involved in pretty near everything that Canterbury's doing at the moment too. Donahue again. Got a bit of pace in the open, this lad too.
Yes, he's a big likely love of a lad from the Mascot Juniors. 6'1", 15 stone 3, and Canterbury bought him in the off-season from South Sydney.
Well, that kick was too big and over the sideline. Scrum back. 10 metres inside Canterbury's half. Scrum wheeling and screwing around. Folks standing out. And Price seemed to have an arm poised there, ready to crash into the folks, but thought better of it. Robinson finds a hole to run out and loads beautifully to Gary Hughes, 5'8". Steve Mortimer's a dummy half. Look for him to have a sprint. There he goes. Back inside to Gary Hughes. And again inside to Paponis. Out there to Folks. Brentnell, a long pass there outside to Mortimer. And Canterbury setting up a bit of razzle-dazzle here. Folks again. Paponis, Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes, the run around. Coveney tries to hurdle the defence. Steve Mortimer has the ball stolen from him, picks it up, 6 to go, play on. Referee waving, Gary Hughes turns it back inside to Anderson. Anderson's going to lob a pass over. It's taken by Peter Mortimer, and he's in for a try next to the posts. And the Parramatta defence stood right off there, not aware that referee Gosher, I think, was going to award 6 to go. See it again. Now watch for this bit of football here as the ball is knocked out of Mortimer's hands. He picks it up and referee Gosher in the background moved for 6. Signal for 6, and Anderson just took off like a scalded rabbit and lobbed a beautiful pass over to Mortimer, Peter, and in for the try from head on. Now watch, you'll see Gosher signal the 6, and the Parramatta players seem to stand and watch some of them. And Anderson, wrong-footed bear O'Reilly, as you'd expect, a winger and a prop forward. And Mortimer in adjacent to the posts. Gearin from 12 metres out and about 5 metres off centre. Almost a gimme for a man of his quality. Yes, right out of the ground. And the scores then after 15 minutes of play, Parramatta 5, Canterbury 5. ...20 minutes gone. 5-all the score. Try each and a goal each. Cronin. Muggleton. About 5 metres from the Canterbury quarter now. Parramatta on the rampage. There's a pass and it's through to Cronin. Unloads beautifully. Back to McKenzie. Oh, what a shocking pass from Steve McKenzie. What the horror. A try on, look at this. All he had to do was line it up for Ella, and it was a yard and a half in front. Jack Gibson will not be very happy about that one. But they come up with possession from the ensuing scrum. Sterling flicks it beautifully back inside the green. That's a marvellous bit of football from Sterling. Found the gap. Great Price. Canterbury now right on the defensive. Here's Bob O'Reilly, and he may have got there. He's over, certainly. Whether he can get it down is another matter. Well, they've actually got him back in the field of play. Sterling. Kenny. And Canterbury waving some of the players waving the others out to come out and defend on the open side. Sterling evades one tackle, evades another, lobs a long pass out to Growth, and Growth's wrapped up by Anderson and taken over the sideline. Great defence. Error situation after 15 minutes. We're looking in this match, as for all of the other matches in this round of football, from the tackle of the week. Corrugated paper tackle of the week, and this has become one of our very popular awards. Another scrum win, scrum situation at the moment. Favours Parramatta. No, it doesn't. They're level at 6-all after that last scrum. The penalties favour Canterbury 3-2. Ray Price, Bob O'Reilly, and he's through right into the gap. Stephen Sharp is going to score. That's a try. Sharp showed surprising pace, and it must be said the Canterbury defence very lax there. See it again. Man-for-man marking. He just defeated the defence there and was able to sprint away, which shows a little bit of lack of chasing by the Canterbury cover through the Casillas tackle. He sees the line fair and square in front of him. The unavailing tackle. Cronin from 10 metres out. And that's it. Another 2 points. Parramatta move on to a 10-point lead, a 10-point score. Canterbury 5. Gearing to restart the play. Don't forget, our best footballer of our weekly telecast match is going to be called the King G Footballer of the Week. He'll receive $400 and appear on Sports World the following Sunday. The weekly award winners will be judged by the Controversy Corner panel. The overall winner will be named the Mazda Footballer of the Year and receive what I think is one of the best prizes in sport. A magnificent Mazda RX-7 is his prize, valued at $17,524. I drive one and they are beautiful. The player responsible for the King G try of the match receives $150. The player responsible for the Mazda try of the year, another great prize, a mighty Mazda 626 valued at $9,564. Cronin stood in the tackle as he always does, to Sharp, then to Hilditch.
A try Sharp scored a moment ago, Rex. That's his first try in first grade.
And a good one. O'Reilly. Cronin coming off an O'Reilly pass, very close on the shoulder. Muggleton, Sharp again. Canterbury wilting a little bit. Still 9 minutes to go. This first half, 10-5, Parramatta lead. Brentnell throws the dummy there, pretended to flick, and then retained the ball. Steve Mortimer. Sterling the tackler. Canterbury players being extorted to get on with it. That was forward or offside to Robinson to give Cronin another opportunity. Cronin from midway between the quarter and halfway. 1981 statistics, 82 goals from 125 attempts, success rate a magnificent 65.6%. He'll be vitally interested in our Dunlop Golden Boot Award for 1982. No goal, the score remains as it was. Parramatta 10, Canterbury 5. Brentnell with the left foot, drives that low. Sterling, as he always does, finds himself in possession. Taken high by Folks. Green, the winger. Nothing in that. A little roar from the crowd as Coveney's arms appeared to swing into that tackle. Nothing in it. Price. O'Reilly. Beautiful pass to Sharp. Muggleton. O'Reilly. Cronin. And Kenny. Last tackle. Look for Sterling. There he is. He goes for the drop on this occasion. It's a bad one. Uncharacteristically bad. Tempo gone right out of this game in the last 5 minutes. We've got a touch judge in at the moment. Did you see that, Barry?
Yes, it could be Jeff Robinson tackling Bob O'Reilly a bit late after the ball had gone.
Robinson not looking sartorially splendid with his socks down, but no doubt in these heat conditions, the less the better.
Yes, the bear had passed the ball just a moment ago. Robinson came through, put him to the ground very hard. He was up very quickly and took the next pass off the ruck.
Robinson. Now Papanis, who's been a bit quiet. Casillas.
2 or 3 of the Canterbury players have been a bit quiet, and it's the heat, and they've only played the one trial game earlier on against Canberra, whereas Parramatta have had 3 games.
Yes, they might be a little bit underdone. Papanis again. Switch of play. Folks. Folks is certainly not going slowly. Steve Mortimer evades the Sterling tackle. Gary Hughes. Donahue. There's not much spark on the Canterbury side at this moment. As if they're pacing themselves to half-time.
Yeah,
They could have a problem in the second half because that wind's beginning to change. It is favouring Canterbury now, but next half it'll favour Cronin with his long kicks at goal.
Right. Differential penalty to Canterbury Bankstown. Incorrect scrum feed. It's a fine kick from there. Up to the quarter line. They've got around about a minute, according to our time, unofficially, to get something going. On the first tackle. Well, that was knocked over the sideline off of Mackenzie's hands, I believe. That's right. There'll be a scrum down here, says the referee. Parramatta put in. Well, there's the hooter in the background. The referee says we'll call it a day. I would have thought he'd let the scrum go on. The scorers of the first half have been for the Parramatta side, Steve Ella and Stephen Sharp, and 2 goals to Mick Cronin. For the Canterbury side, Peter Mortimer a try, and the solitary goal to Steve Gearin. 10-5 in Parramatta's favour. Back with all the action of the second half of Sevens Big League in just a moment.
Well, the Canterbury side, the change is Dennis Donahue was off with a shoulder injury, checked by the doctor, and it appears it's been popped. And Craig Matson, the young forward who's played 4 games for Canterbury in first grade before, is on. Ted Glossop spent a lot of time talking to his forwards. He wasn't particularly happy. He said, I know it's very, very hot, but you've just got to get up and do the work. He didn't blame anyone particularly, but he said the weakness is coming from the forwards. Jack Gibson, he was more concerned that his side was thinking of the tries before they'd actually scored them. They must get into position and then score the tries.
Well, here's Sharp, who scored a try for Parramatta in the first half. Now, Sterling. Muggleton, beautiful pass to Cronin. He's right through, looks through it. Oh, and it's gone astray. Rope has it. And no, he hasn't. It's over the sideline. There was a try on there if the pass was able to be got successfully away, and Cronin couldn't manage it. See it again. Surged right through the gap. Had to throw the pass there, and one of the rare occasions that Cronin would throw a bad one.
Along the lines of what Jack Gibson was saying, the try was scored in their minds before the work was done.
Scrum went to Canterbury. Scrum's finished up at 7-6 in the first half, so it's 8-6 at the moment in their favour. The penalties, 4 all. Canterbury defending at the moment, territorially. On their quarter line. Folks goes round the ruck and loads nicely. Peter Mortimer has it, striding away and a good tackle from Sharp. Chops him down. Had a good game. Steve Mortimer. Throws the dummy. No shepherding, says the referee. That's up to halfway. Gary Hughes. Back on the inside to Chris Mortimer. Picked off with a fine tackle there. How many of these young men will be on soon? Parramatta reserves all lined up there. Coach Gibson noted for changing players.
Rocky Laurie's young brother, Mark Laurie, in the middle of that bunch.
Now, folks. George Paponis. There's Madsen. Straight and hard, but it's been knocked backwards. Paponis switches it out to Coveney. Now Paponis again. Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes. Nowhere to go. Robinson. Ooh, very close to being through there. He's still going. Referee allowing him to get up from the ground, saying that his forward progress hadn't been stopped. Mortimer with a nice step off the right foot. Last tackle coming up. Steve Mortimer. It's a nice pass to Folks. It's a beautiful one to Chris Mortimer, but he stumbled and fell, and play finishes on the quarter. Still the score then, with 7 minutes of the second half gone. Parramatta 10, Canterbury 5. Penalty. Parramatta. Down in the scrum is George Paponis. The tap restart, set play. Hilditch. Green just his own side of halfway, thrown through the legs by Stephen Edge. Peter Sterling has it, made half a break. It's on the ground, picked up by Paponis, unloads it quickly to Steve Mortimer. Out to Gary Hughes. Hughes can't get his arms free. There was an opportunity there, 3-man over on the right. Coveney. Telecast brought to you by Mazda and your local Mazda dealer. Vasilis. Canterbury look a little bit weary already in the second half. Players not hurrying into position.
Yes, no runners at all for the ball carriers, is there?
Anderson there, the winger, wandering back infield at the moment. There's a penalty for sure. Interference with Steve Mortimer after he kicked the ball. See it again. No argument about it. Now watch Steve Mortimer. And there he goes down. Remember that one for a little later if it's a close score at the finish. George Paponis knocks it back. Anderson has it now. Inside the quarter. Parramatta's in. Steve Mortimer. Madsen. Through! Now quick play the ball and Parramatta are in trouble. He's done it quickly. Steve Mortimer. Gary Hughes. Peter Mortimer. Back inside to Gearin. Folks. Gary Hughes. Robinson standing wide. And that renowned Parramatta defence equal to the task. Gary Hughes. Little dummy. Nicely back on the inside to Anderson. Then to Madsen again. Madsen away to Mortimer. Mortimer's in. Top bit of football. Madsen's delighted. A top bit of football. The change of direction by Gary Hughes out on the right was the instigator of it. See it again. There it was, that pass from Gary Hughes back on the inside to Anderson. Madsen for the second time in as many minutes chiming in. Mortimer's good footwork and a fine bit of cover there by Muggleton nearly saved the day. Watch Gary Hughes from head on. Anderson unloads. Madsen, the acceleration, thought perhaps he was going to score himself. Then to Mortimer, evaded the tackle of Mackenzie, easy, but it's a try. Gearan from only about 11 metres out, 12 metres out. 10 metres off centre. No trouble at all. Calm as you please. And the score then after 11 minutes of the second half locked at 10-all.
Colours, huh? She makes me see red.
Mortimer, Bretnall. Folks takes a little sprint up the blind side.
What it was in the Canterbury camp, Rex, there's no replacement in store yet, but Stephen Folkes has got blisters, bad blisters on his feet, and the trainer went in to get some felt to keep it covered.
Madsen creating a bit of havoc in this Parramatta side. He's had 3 times he's handled the ball. He's made ground every time. Robinson on the surge. Is this the Canterbury recharge? Paponis back inside to Anderson with a rather violent flick. Steve Mortimer showing the ball. Still managed to get a pass away to Peter Mortimer. Gearan, lovely. Back to Peter Mortimer. They play some beautiful stuff to Canterbury when they get that ball swinging around. Steve Mortimer, he's been put down, but the referee... Oh, is it a try? I think the touch judge is going to rule that that was outside again, but it will be at a disadvantage not having a camera in line with that line. We can slow it down as it comes to ground. Oh, yes, definitely over the dead ball line with the feet, but perilously close to it. From head on, let's see it again. Took the ball in the field of play, but had his right foot over the dead ball line. Eric Growth, who's only handled the ball a couple of times. Muggleton. 10-all the score. 15 minutes of the second half gone. Anybody's game? Beautiful pass from Cronin. But that one goes astray, and it's finally kicked over the sideline. Scrums at this stage have gone away to Canterbury by 10-6. Parramatta haven't won a second half scrum. They have now with that one. Nice run around. Mackenzie throws the dummy. Ridden to the ground by Gary Hughes. Penalties favour Canterbury by 6-5. Cronin. Sterling. Well tackled. Sterling did well to hold that. Casillas really jolted him. Muggleton so close to being through. Got up and played it forward.
The Canterbury forwards aren't the only ones walking now. There's a couple of Parramatta forwards out wide at the moment.
Murderous heat for First Division football. Any division football. Edge, Sterling, Kenny, Cronin. Good defence. Scrum now just outside the Canterbury quarter. Another Parramatta scrum win. That's 2 in a row. A little knock on by Peter Sterling. The referee saw. See it again. Crowd roar. Just a little one. That's all it takes. Just to make the referee, or prove the referee correct. We did that. Now that's 3 scrums in a row the Parramatta side have won. Price. That pivot. Mackenzie, Sterling, O'Reilly, Cronin, beautifully back on the inside to Edge. That's a top try. A top bit of football beside the posts. You don't get them any better than that. See it again. Sterling, big Bob O'Reilly, the timing of the pass to Cronin, who loves to run off him, one-handed to Edge, and that'll look just as good from head on. Now watch Bob O'Reilly. Quality football. Cronin on the inside and close. Stephen Edge, well, he's going to run through the goalpost there for a second.
Coburn on for O'Reilly, yes.
Cronin's kick and goal was successful. So the score then, after 18 minutes of the second half, Parramatta 15, Canterbury 10. 3 tries to 2 Parramatta, 3 goals to 2. Penalty to Canterbury. 7-5. The penalties in Canterbury's favour. The scrum's at 10-all. And 15 minutes to go. Brentnall's left foot kick is a pretty useful one. Up to within 8 metres of the quarter line, Parramatta's in. Anderson. Belted to the ground on the quarter line. Raponis. George looking a little bit the worse for wear as far as conditions concerned.
Yes, well, it's been a long time since George played football. He's only had the 5 games last year and that injury, back injury, and today in this heat.
Raponis. Gary Hughes. Robinson. Got a pass away, but couldn't get it to hand to Gary Hughes. Growth got a bad pass back inside. Price has it now. Coveney falls on him. Sharp, who's had as good a game as anyone on the field, I would think. Peter Sterling, Ron Hilditch. Sterling. Skipped up by Mackenzie, given to Coburn, back on the inside he goes. That was past was 4, offside. Coburn to Sterling. The referee was quite right, see it again. This pass here, you can see the halfway line indicates clearly that it was offside. It's a fine kick. That's a gain of around about 45 metres from where he kicked it. Canterbury just starting to run out of time. Need a try and a goal to get back on level terms. Coveney. Raponis, Robinson still charging ahead, giving 100%. We're just watching Gearan sprint into midfield at the moment. He's come in from out on the wing. Steve Mortimer, Gary Hughes. Brentnall. Oh, Brentnall's in! It's a try beside the post of a Gary Hughes pass, and what a great try. Came from nothing, really. The defence looked set. See it again. Raponis. The switch of play to Gary Hughes and the timing of the pass to Brentnall. It's an old move, that. It's been used 1,000 times by Canterbury in my time from head on. They've used it with all sorts of fullbacks. Used it with Dowling. Stephen Edge coming from the field at the moment will be...
Yes, I know who the replacement is. It's Paul Mars, under 23 front rower.
All right, so Stephen Edge from the field. He's halved the scrums at this point in time at 10-all. As Gearan lines up this kick that can put them on level terms yet again. And that he does. So the stage is set with 12 minutes to go for a pretty heavy session of football, with the score as it is locked together 15-all. Stephen Edge getting some ice treatment there. That's the thing that an injury must have happened to it, the freezing situation with ice. And no heat applied to an injury initially. Always the freezing situation.
Yes, and Paul Mears, or Mars, the replacement, will go to front row, I assume, and Ron Hillich will hook.
Right, now, it's all to play for. They've had 70 minutes of football, and they're still locked at 15 all. Might be worthwhile remembering the amendment to the rule on unsuccessful or attempts at field goal, where players are legally treated by the opposition when attempting a field goal, whether the kick is successful or not. If the referee adjudicates that the kick was illegal. Peter Mortimer stepping beautifully. Guerin. I'll get back to that in a moment. Steve Mortimer. Parramatta a bit short of defence out here as folks come surging ahead. Nicely then on to 22, Madsen, and that's the 6. Just getting back to it as Parramatta and Canterbury both have field goalers in their side. The new amendment states that if a player is illegally interfered with in the attempt of a field goal, a penalty can ensue. So whether it goes over or not, they can still get a penalty. Gary Hughes. Oh, I thought he had the opportunity to unload back on the inside there. Now Steve Mortimer back to Gary Hughes. And that player who normally is unable to get the ball away from anywhere has twice gone to ground with it. Coveney. Bit surprised with Gary Hughes on those 2 occasions. Steve Mortimer. Brentwell on the surge and still going. Madsen. Now Canterbury really coming back with a big burst. Chris Mortimer. Ran into trouble with Coburn there. Here's the field goal attempt. It's successful. So Canterbury have hit the front by 1 point. Up they go, 16-15. And Steve Mortimer was the man. See it again. So we've called it right for once. Well, fasten your seatbelts now. It was a useful field goal. They're all useful if they go over. You wouldn't have called it a classic field goal. It didn't get much height. Okay. Important scrum for Canterbury. It's a penalty against Mortimer for putting his hands in the scrum. Now Mortimer knows better than that. Canterbury on the rack again. The players only have to retire to the line in this situation. Now here's a crisscross move, or one of a number of variations on it. Heavens above, he was almost through. Only a despairing tackle there, I think, from Casillas. That's a through the legs one. Sharp. Belted down hard. Coveney coming into his own in the last 10 minutes with some strong defence. Price. Crowd setting up a roar here at Belmore as they look at this point situation. Canterbury 16, Parramatta 15. Parramatta standing far too shallow at the moment. They're getting chopped off. Easy to criticise, but this heat, the hard game they've had. Last tackle again. Great defence from Folks. Sterling. Up goes a bomb. Not a great one. Who's got it? Casillas for Canterbury. Now they'll play it cool for a few if they've got any brains. That was kicked through. Should be 6 to go. Oh no, referee, that ball was struck for illegally, I thought. There's Ted Glossop, who's trying to appear calm, but I suggest his tummy would be very turbulent at the moment. He's giving the scorers in the game. Parramatta's tries have come from Ella, Sharp and Edge. There's the hurdle in the background. Michael Powell's kicked 3 goals from 3 attempts. That's the end of the ball game. The referee says that's enough. The tries for Canterbury have come from Greg Brentwell, Peter Mortimer, Steve Mortimer, 3 goals to Steve Guerin, and that critical field goal to Steve Mortimer. Not an easy game to give an award winner because a lot of players played in fits and starts because of the heat, and it was horrendous out there. I've spoken to several of them and they tell me it was gasping. But we went for Steve Mortimer, the little Canterbury halfback, for some very fine work. particularly in defence early, and then a try, and then, of course, that critical field goal. So Steve Mortimer, our first award winner of the year. Now, results of other games played today, and on your screen you can see that the Parramatta-Canterbury game that we televised finished 16-15 to Canterbury. Cronulla-Sutherland have had a resounding 22-8 victory over Belmore at the Endeavour Field. Western Suburbs have gone down at Lidcombe Oval massively, 33 Manly, Western Suburbs 12, and progress at the moment in the game between Penrith and Illawarra. That was a late start. As we tape this, Penrith were leading at half-time by 14 points to 0. This is Rex Mossop from Belmore.
Join us again for Sevens Big League at 6:30 next Sunday evening. Right now, it's time for chips, and John and Ponch take on a whole family of crooks, including the clan's youngest member. John and Ponch in trouble and loving it, next on 7. And at 8:30, the glittering 1982 premiere of the Royal Variety Performance. Great stars including Cliff Richard, Leslie Caron, John Inman of Are You Being Served, and the great stars of British rock in the 60s and 70s. The 82 Royal Variety Performance premiere at 8:30 tonight.